He climbed into a tiny inflatable dinghy with nothing but a compass, a pistol for signaling, a bottle of wine, and a single stubborn conviction. Shipwrecked sailors do not die because they lack water or food. They die because panic destroys their will to survive. In 1952, French doctor Alain Bombard set out to prove that radical theory, and his method was as simple as it was terrifying. He would attempt to cross the Atlantic alone, with no fresh water, no fishing gear, and no real provisions. What followed was 65 days at the mercy of sea, sun, and his own mind. A journey that would reshape maritime survival practices forever. From the start, Bombard treated the experiment like a clinical trial. He chose a 30-foot stretch of inflatable dinghy, rigged only with a makeshift sail and a handful of small vials of seawater for specimens. He left the Canary Islands on October 19, 1952, bound for the West Indies. The Atlantic did not negotiate. Waves slapped the boat, winds toyed with the sail, and the sun beat unrelentingly on a cramped space no larger than a bathtub. Yet for Bombard, discomfort was a variable to be measured, not a reason to quit. The most extraordinary claim he intended to prove was that seawater could be processed into drinkable fluid and that certain fish could provide both hydration and nutrients. Without fishing gear, he improvised. He used a piece of sailcloth and whatever he could fashion from the dinghy to capture small fish. For hydration, he performed what many considered science fiction. He extracted fluids from fish bodies and used tiny quantities of diluted seawater. He drank the blood and bodily fluids of some fish and carefully filtered and rationed his intake. It sounds grotesque, but his method was governed by calculation. He believed small, controlled sips of brackish liquid were survivable if panic and dehydration were managed. Sharks circled. Rainstorms struck. At times, his situation deteriorated into the surreal. Bombard wrote later of hallucinations and moments when reality thinned, a common symptom of prolonged dehydration and sensory deprivation. He saw mirages of land, invented conversations, and sometimes could not tell whether he had slept or drifted in a fugue state. He rationed his tiny bottle of wine for medicinal purposes, used the pistol only as a signal when passing ships appeared, and kept meticulous notes of his pulse, urine color, and the behavior of the fish he caught. When he did encounter ships, he refused prolonged rescue. He feared that accepting full assistance would invalidate his experiment. On one occasion, a passing vessel provided fresh water and news of the wider world. Bombard accepted only a sip, replenished his small stock, and set off again. That stubbornness exposed him to real danger: malnutrition, scurvy, infection from raw fish, and the psychological strain of isolation. Yet his body adapted in surprising ways. He found that small fish, particularly flying fish and certain species of bait fish, could be a source of hydration. Raw, sometimes roasted over a makeshift flame, and modest calories. He learned to collect rainwater carefully, using plastic and canvas to channel drops into containers and to preserve limited reserves in the shade. After 65 grueling days, Bombard reached Barbados. He had traveled about 4,000 kilometers, thinner, sunburned, and exhausted, but alive. The scientific community reacted with a mixture of admiration and skepticism. Critics argued that his methods were dangerous and not universally applicable. Few castaways would have the medical knowledge, resolve, or improvisational skill he possessed. Supporters pointed out that his trial demonstrated crucial points. Panic is deadly. Small, measured intakes of alternative fluids can sustain life briefly, and morale and knowledge dramatically increase survival odds. Bombard's voyage led to practical changes. His notes informed new survival manuals, lifeboat equipment, and training that emphasized calm, resourcefulness, and the use of available marine resources. His experiment did not claim to be a universal solution for every castaway, but it reframed how survival at sea was understood, as much a psychological battle as a physical one. Alain Bombard did not simply cross an ocean. He subjected human limits to a sustained test, extracted uncomfortable but essential truths, and forced the maritime world to reassess what it takes to survive. His 65 days alone on the Atlantic remain one of the most extreme experiments in survival history, a reminder that in the face of nature, the greatest threats often begin inside our own heads.